Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today for our final session in Silver Week. It's been a great week so far and really excited to have Exelon round out the list of companies presenting. Many of you know Exelon, but we are going to run through the full presentation because there's a number of new people on the call. So I'd like to introduce Brendan Cahill, CEO of Exelon Resources. As always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. You can find those on the company's disclosure on their website. And with that out of the way, I'm really excited to hear about the recent drill results that you had at Silver City and get an update on what's going on in Idaho and as well as with Mexico. So thanks, Brendan.
Thanks everyone for attending today, and great to be here to close out Silver Week. I guess it's Silver 2 weeks. There was a lot going on last week with Adelaide Capital as well. So Exelon Resources, Mexico's highest grade silver producer, but now also so much more with some of the transactions and resource growth that we did during 2020. As Deb noted, forward-looking statements are on our website. So Exelon is mostly known for its Platosa mine, highest grade silver producer in Mexico, a project that we've been operating since 2005. We actually discovered it in 1999, a project that was brought to us by Peter McGaw of Mag Silver and Everywhere fame now. And growing that project over the past 15, 16 years or so has been the company's primary business. But really it was, looking at the gold market in the spring of 2019 and seeing gold go through 1375, 1400, it seems a long time ago now, we realized that the bull market was fully back on. So we started looking at a number of projects in the Western US and ended up acquiring a company called Otis Gold, primarily for its Kilgore project in Eastern Idaho, and also the Oakley project, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. But Kilgore, an NPV at current metal prices of $300 million US, and we acquired Otis for only $22 million Canadian in Exelon stock. So an incredibly accretive deal for Exelon and its shareholders. At the same time, though, we think there's a lot of growth potential on the Kilgore project. Agnico Eagle invested $5 million into Otis back in 2017. And, our discussions with them, the work that we've done, we think we have visibility on, 3 to 5 million ounce potential on this project. Beautiful geology, lots of room to grow. So a big part of our focus is drilling this project to see what we have, to chart the path forward on it. This focus on growth, this focus on discovery is really the ethos of the company. We have 5 projects that we're all moving forward towards discovery, towards resource growth, ultimately development. The key one we're going to talk about today on the discovery focus, though, is our Silver City project in Saxony, Germany. That's going to be at the end of the presentation. I think a good way to close out Silver Week, but a very fascinating project. Mined for 800 years until Germany moved off the silver standard in 1873, never explored in modern times. But high-grade silver there, and we've made the first new discoveries on the project in over 150 years. The latest out yesterday, a meter, 1.3 meters at over 1 kilo per ton silver equivalent. So very excited for this year upcoming with the Silver City project. Now, capital structure, very important part of our story. Only 33 million shares outstanding. So very tight capital structure. We just moved up to the New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE American, at the end of September. And I think when we talk about, what day are we here? We're February 19th. The infamous February 1st, Silver Squeeze Day. We moved from 325 to 465 over the course of those couple days. Really, tremendous torque to the silver price flows into the space. And I think, to dwell on it for a second, that Silver Squeeze event was really about more people getting more eyeballs on silver. And that's ultimately what we want to see. It's about people buying American Eagles, but we're in 2021 right now, and there's so many more avenues to get into the silver space, tell the story, talk about where the market is, and also the critical importance of silver as we move forward in the modern age and towards this green revolution that's coming. Working capital at the end of Q3, 10.5 million. One of the parts of our story is we generate the cash flow we need for exploration, and that's kind of how we want to keep that working capital pretty stable as we move forward. Big shareholders here, Eric Sprott at around 13% of the company, and then a number of other shareholders, and a couple of the ones that I point out, the ETF Prime Junior Miners ETF, the SILJ, and then the SIL as well. The SILJ is about 3% plus of the company, the SIL creeping up to almost 2%. So these ETFs are very active in the stock. And for the silver, explorer producer, it's a great way of getting access to the generalist market in the US. When money comes into the equities, it goes to these ETFs and that funnels down into the equities themselves. So board and management, I'll point out a couple members of the board, or a little bit of background on the board. 4 coming over from Exelon prior to the Otis transaction: Andre, Laurie, Andrew, and myself. Craig Lindsay and Roger joining us from Otis. And then I'll point out Mike Timmons joining us upon the close of the transaction, former VP Corporate Development at Agnico Eagle, led the investment into Otis back in 2017, the acquisition of Osisko as well back in 2015. And then Annalag Kruger, former CFO of Trevali, tremendous mining acumen and career. She was actually our CFO until October, then moved over to McEwen Mining and up to the board with us. On the management side, I've been with the company since 2012 now. And before that, Ben Pullinger and I were at a company called Pelangio, which spun off Detour Lake to Detour Gold in 2007, just before we joined. So tremendous returns to our shareholders through that transaction. We went over to West Africa, made a number of discoveries there. And then Ben went to Roxgold in 2012. And with that team, brought Yaramoko to commercial production in 2016 before joining Exelon. Alfred Colas, CFO, joined us in October of last year, formerly of Barrick. Paul Keller, former CFO of Trevali, great operator, acquirer, great addition to the team. So really is a team that can go from acquiring grassroots projects on the ground through to permitting, financing, development, and carrying on in production as well. So the 3 jurisdictions that we're in right now, and I kind of like this slide because it really shows our global aspect. But the important thing, despite borders and time zones and oceans, is that we have a dedicated team on each of these projects. Obviously, our operational team in Mexico is important, but the rest of them, all of them, are really exploration plays and crack exploration teams on each of these projects. Of course, in Mexico, a team that Ben's been developing now for 5 years or so. Silver City, where we've started to develop a very, very good team right around the project, and Freiburg, and we'll talk about the access to great talent that we have there. And then a team that we're really developing quite effectively in Idaho for the Kilgore and Oakley projects. If we want to have all these assets, want to move them all forward at once, we can't be running around from Toronto to do that. So these teams, they develop ideas, they pitch them to us, we refine the ideas, allocate the capital accordingly, and then you can prioritize your assets so they're all primed to be generating news flow and moving towards discovery or resource growth or what's appropriate at all times. So we'll start down in Mexico with our Platosa project. And Platosa, again, in operation since 2005. Historically, the challenge in the operation was too much water coming into the mine. It's a limestone-hosted deposit. So if you go back in the annals of history, the challenges of water were always a big deal at Platosa. But we put in a dewatering system in 2017 that really addressed that problem, dried out the mine entirely, and gave us the opportunity to produce far more efficiently and at lower cost. And then in Q2 of this year, obviously a very difficult quarter for everyone in the world, not just the mining industry, but in Mexico particularly, April 1st to June 1st, the mining industry was shut down by the government in an effort to try to control the pandemic. So we took the opportunity to make some tough changes. We were going from 3 shifts a day to 2 shifts a day in the operation, from 8-hour to 10-hour shifts, just a far more efficient arrangement of people and moving people around less, keeping people at the face more. So we reduced our workforce at that time, and that's seen a big improvement in productivity since then. We renegotiated our offtake agreements on zinc. We changed our mining method from cut and fill to overhand cut and bench, which works very effectively on the Platosa geology. And then in October of this year, we moved to a new electricity provider, a natural gas-backed provider, which reduced our electricity cost by about 30%. So starting to see the benefits of that now. What I will note, though, is that we noted this earlier in the week, is that the polar vortex going on in the southwest US, really feeding into Mexico right now and causing some challenges with electricity supply across, in fact, the entire country. So that's going to impact our costs in Q1, We are minimizing that impact as much as possible, but something to note, going forward. It is a challenge, but something that we're getting through. But when we look at Q3 and Q4, and Q3 in particular as a good example of what the mine is capable of, now hitting record tonnage, 22,000 tons during the quarter, very good metal production, excellent recoveries, and Platosa is starting to become what we want it to be. It's a 2 to 2.5 million ounce silver equivalent a year producer. That's kind of what this mine will do. Generates good cash flow that goes into our other projects and allows us to grow them going forward. I will note on this slide before we get into what we're doing around Platosa, our mill down in Miguelauza in northern Zacatecas, that sits within our Evolucion project, a 45,000 hectare ground package, which is a great greenfields exploration play on the northern Fresnillo silver trend, but also hosts a deposit that we kind of defined in the middle of 2020, right beside the mill, between 80 and 100 million silver equivalent ounces, depending on the base metal prices that you use. So exceptional leverage to the zinc price and silver price. Right now, it's mostly an inferred resource, but we're going to move that forward over the coming years. Look towards more drilling, put some economics on it, but a very interesting asset that we've managed to put together during 2020. So from an exploration perspective, Platosa, 11,000 hectares, very large ground package. We've got 3 goals: grow Platosa, find more Platosas, and then find the source of Platosa. So on the grow Platosa side, key things we're doing: drilling outside the mineralized zone defined historically, but then also drilling very effectively underground to continue expanding resources that can be mined in the relatively near term. So if you look at this slide, highlight drill results in the past few weeks came out on February 1st, 4.2 meters at over 1,100 grams silver equivalent. One of the things our development has done over the past years is allow us to get over the mineralization, drill back in, do an effective underground drilling campaign, which historically wasn't possible. The interesting thing there is that historically everything was drilled from surface with vertical drill holes. The zones here are 3 to 5 meters high, but in this part of the deposit starts to turn over and gets pretty vertical. So trying to drill that with vertical holes from surface is quite difficult. It's kind of luck if you actually hit it. Now with drilling from underground, we can actually start to get into that zone, to find some tonnage and get near-term mineralization that will add tons to the resource going forward. So some exciting exploration results, in this slide that we put out recently, and lots more to come. This isn't a day-to-day thing that we do. We drill underground, drill that high grade, and add years to the mine life. And then we step out a bit further. And one of the interesting things about that area that we're drilling here in the gap zone is that it's actually connected with some mineralization that we've hit about 250 meters away. We're starting to pick up massive sulfide mineralization in drill holes from surface. The importance of that is that the entire footprint of Platosa is about 600 by 700 meters. So if you're hitting mineralization 250 meters outside of that footprint, you're talking about a very significant increase in the footprint of the deposit. So that's a target that we're going to be following up on over the course of 21 into 22, but really points towards a bright future for the deposit itself and the mining operation. Now, we're going to talk about finding more Platosas in just after this piece, but finding the source of Platosa also very key. So about 2 miles north of the mine itself, or about a mile or so, we've got this Rincon del Caído discovery, which was made in 2012, 2013. 55 meters at 278 grams per ton silver equivalent, 7.25 meters at over 1,100 grams silver equivalent. Never really fit into the geology or geophysics in a way that we could make sense of. That was until about 18 months, 2 years ago, where we made a big geophysical, I guess you could call it, discovery of this PDN target here, about 2 miles to the north. Very large resistivity, gravity, mag high, everything we want to see. And we're in the early days of starting to drill that. And the target there is a big gold copper skarn, these mineralizing events that kind of wrap around the intrusive and spawn off the manto style massive sulfide deposits that we've been mining at Platosa. So it's a bit trickier, it takes some time, got to be smart about the way you drill there, but that's kind of the big goal that we have geologically and from an exploration discovery perspective on the project. But then let's step up to Jaboncillo here, about 11 kilometers northwest of the mine itself. And there, we defined an alteration zone about 4 by 4 kilometers back in 2017, 2018. And again, 4 by 4 versus 600, 700 meters, 600 by 700 meters. This is about 25 times the footprint, the alteration footprint of Platosa. So huge target. And we drilled there in 2019. We started hitting gaussons on pretty much every hole. And gaussons are oxidized parts of a mineralized system. Then the question was, well, are these the oxides we're looking for? Or are these the formerly sulfides that we're looking for? We did petrographic studies, and what we're seeing is oxidized galena and sphalerite. And that's what we mine at Platosa. That's what we're looking for. Now we got to find the sulfide part of the system. So coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be drilling what we think may be the sulfide part of the system as we step down from the kind of topographical highs, the hillside, into the flats where there's no outcrop, and we have some very strong geophysical anomalies that seem structurally as well to be associated with what we've been hitting in the gaussons and oxides up in the hill. And that actually looks very, very like the setting that we see at Platosa. So exciting drilling there. Great thing about exploration, there's always something on the horizon. There's always a new potential discovery on the horizon. And we're really excited about this one right now. So stay tuned for drill results on that, kind of going through the middle of the year as we start drilling there over the next couple of weeks. So lots going on at Platosa. We've got that production, that direct exposure to the silver price and the movements in the silver price. Still think we're very early days in this precious metals bull market. And particularly on silver, this green metal, absolutely essential for solar panels, any kind of new technology that comes to the fore. You start with silver and then try to look for a green alternative or a cheaper alternative if you can. And then around Platosa, that growth potential. Grow Platosa, find more Platosas, and find the source of Platosa. So now we're going to go up to Idaho and talk about the projects that we acquired through the acquisition of Otis back in April of 2020. So 2 projects acquired, Kilgore, we're going to talk about that mostly, and then the Oakley project. Oakley's in southern Idaho, and we've actually optioned it out to Centerra Gold. They're spending up to $7 million over the next 6 years, turn into up to 70% on the project. It's about 80 miles to the west of Liberty Gold's Black Pine deposit or project, and it's geologically quite similar. So we're going to start drilling there probably late Q1, early Q2. Very exciting drill program coming up. Stay tuned for that over the coming months and quarters. Let's talk about Kilgore. So Kilgore, 1 million ounces at about 0.5 gram. We'll call it oxide, but really it's a steam heated zone near surface in the currently defined resource. The 2 things that drew us to it, of course, those economics, a $300 million NPV based on the PEA at $1,800 gold that we acquired for $22 million Canadian in shares. But really it's the growth potential, and the opportunity to find underground aspects to the deposit that really differentiated this one from some of the other projects that we were looking at in the Western US over the preceding year to year and a half. Some of the drilling done deeper, 95 meters at 4.2 grams per ton, 31 meters at 5.4 grams per ton. This is part of the Aspen Formation, which underlies the whole project. It's an Arcosic sandstone. Most of these holes, it's free gold sitting in this rock. So beautiful mineralization, more structurally controlled. You got a diamond drill it versus RC, and something that's been done to very, very small extent back in 2015 and 2016. We'll look at that in cross-section in a few slides and talk about what our plans are there going forward. But the PEA released in August of 2019, that very strong NPV at current metal prices, lots of leverage to higher gold prices, yet still resilient at much lower gold prices of $1,100 or $1,300 gold. 81 million in CapEx gets you 110,000 ounces a year over 5 years of mine life. So from our perspective, we're not moving forward on development on this, right now. It's really the focus on defining what's there, growing it into what we think could be a world-class deposit and system. The exploration goal here, define something that can do 100,000+ ounces a year over 10+ years of mine life. And then you kind of look towards a development decision, all the while trying to find a lot more on the broader project. Recovery is very good at over 80%. This is on crushed ore, and over 90% achieved in more recent studies. Strip ratio 1.1 to 1. So it's just a great foundation, great starter project. It's got the good bones, and now it's just about doing the drilling to see what is ultimately here. So looking at it in cross-section, you can see this is a conceptual pit. There's been no mining here historically. The deposit's sitting near surface. This is your kind of half-gram material. Some drill holes into the hillside, 150 meters at ore grade, open into the hillside and along strike as well. And then the contact with the Aspen Formation, we say the Aspen is the deeper part, but it's actually, outcrops in various areas around the project. It's just a more compact, structurally hosting gold part of the system. So, continuing to expand this resource near surface and then drilling underground to continue following up that 4 to 5 gram per ton material. At the very bottom of these holes, we do start to see some sulfides, and that's fascinating because that's a hotter part of the system, even higher grade, and really, puts us in the direction of a potential underground aspect to this deposit. So right now we're working through the permitting phase for the EA on the project, looking towards a decision on that in the spring. And if all goes according to plan, aim to be drilling here starting in mid-July of this year. To close out Kilgore, really interesting property as well. The deposit here over to the east. One of the markers of gold mineralization in the system is jarosite. We've used hyperspectral scanning, which is a kind of remote satellite-based scanning, to trace that jarosite across the project, pick up those structures, and then get boots on the ground, do some prospecting. We're seeing stream seds with gold in it, and then outcrops with gold mineralization as well. So very fascinating project. Lots of interesting stuff to follow up on, lots of exploration to come as we continue to explore right around the deposit itself. So stay tuned for Kilgore kind of towards the middle of this year. And then we'll cross the sea to Germany, sitting in the middle of Europe. And I think, starting from being in Toronto right now, we often think in Canada, there's no mining in Europe, but that's absolutely not the case. Huge base metal mines in Northern Europe and Scandinavia, some of the biggest zinc mines in the world in Ireland. You've got great gold mines in Eastern Europe. You've got the biggest silver mine in the world in Poland. And in Germany, you have quite a bit of coal mining still going on right now, and a lot of extractive industry around Eastern Germany where we're located. So definitely a place. I think one of the things, though, when you think about it, in Germany they make cars and fridges and stoves and all kinds of other amazing things, right? And they're not worried about where the metal comes. They're not worried about the input. It's about the output. In Canada, because of our natural resources acumen, we're often worried about the input, that copper, that lead concentrate, zinc concentrate, gold, silver. It's just a little bit different part of the supply chain when you look at Germany. So looking at our Silver City project, sitting in the middle of Saxony. And I think that the history of this project, how we got it, and kind of the rhymes of history really fascinate me. It was a project that was mined from the 11th century through to the 19th century. And in 1871, Germany won the Franco-Prussian War, got a 200 million pound settlement in gold from the French, and moved off the silver standard in 1873 to the gold standard. They dropped that during World War I. Then you had the hyperinflationary Weimar Republic, depression after that, World War II, of course, and then Saxony became part of East Germany after the war. And under Soviet influence, really the goal was, find base metals, find the metals of the revolution versus capitalism in this very silver-rich part of the geological system. So right around Freiberg, which is just southeast of the project, that's the base metal-rich dominant part of the system, lots of lead and zinc. So that was mined up until the 50s, 60s, 70s. At the Halsbrucke smelter in operation until 1968, just on the edge of the project. It really wasn't until well after reunification, 2010 or so, that Germany realized, look, supply chains are breaking down. This is a time when nickel is flying, copper is well over $4, silver's $50. That Germany realized, like, we need to secure a supply of metal. So as one step in realizing that, they founded an arm of the Helmholtz Institute, which is kind of a German MIT in the town of Freiberg, to advocate for the return of exploration, development, and mining within German borders, and also develop technological solutions for mining and exploration. And it was put in Freiberg because the oldest mining and metallurgical university in the world is in Freiberg, churning out PhD students to this day. So the setting here is perfect. You've got the geology, this history of mining. You've got near-term culture of mining, in fact, around Freiburg. You've got a regulator sitting in the town of Freiburg, same office since 1750, an excellent jurisdiction and protocol for the advancements of projects. And you've got the time. Metal prices on the way up, starting to hit this super cycle, and we're perfectly positioned in this jurisdiction. We got the project by optioning it from a company called Globex, a great prospect generator out of Quebec, 160 plus projects in North America. And just a little bit of an anecdote, a story about how we got it. I was in Germany back in November 2018. Met Globex's geologist Matthias Jurget, who'd spent 20 years on the Fresnillo silver trend and realized you could find a Fresnillo back home in Germany. So I kind of dismissed the idea, thought it was crazy. But then Ben and I were looking for great places to make high-grade discoveries in solid jurisdictions globally. Advised him on this idea, and then he hunted things down. We did about 9 months of diligence and ended up doing the option agreement with Globex in September of 2019. The option is $500,000 Canadian in cash over 3 years, $1.6 million Canadian in shares. So very, very good option, and Globex gets a royalty after that. Something that works out for both sides. So when we look at this project, though, and what exactly have we optioned it? Why are we so excited about it? Well, it's 164 square kilometers, 36 kilometers of strike on a high-grade epithermal silver trend. So if you took this outline, you threw it down in Mexico, in Zacatecas, it would basically cover the Fresnillo trend between Zacatecas and Fresnillo. That's 52 kilometers from town square to town square. This is about 36 kilometers in strike. So to do that in Mexico or on any high-grade silver trend globally, virtually impossible. We've got records going back from 100 plus years ago of these old mines, Bronsdorf in the south to Munzig in the north, up to 4,000 gram per ton silver mined, widths, 10 centimeters up to 10 meters in a kind of classic epithermal silver, setting. So great records of mineralization. In fact, in the mineralogical galleries in town, there's a world famous mineralogical gallery in the town of Freiburg. We have extracts from these old mines from 100 plus years ago. High-grade galena, sphalerite, these samples were running, multi-kilo per ton silver with good gold, copper, gold, zinc, and lead grades as well. So when we got on the project, we optioned it in September 2019. We started the permitting process for the first phase of drilling in January. We got that permit in May. It would have been a lot sooner, but for the logistics of the pandemic, obviously March, April, very difficult times for everyone, mostly stay at home. But so permitting very efficient. When we talk about the permitting process in the US or Mexico or Canada, Germany actually seems to be at least, if not a lot more efficient. And then it was about starting to drill. We started drilling in July, and definitely some curiosity from our local neighbors. They hadn't seen a drill rig in 100 years, if ever, but acceptance and some very good engagement from the community. And then we started hitting this epithermal system on hole after hole. Now over 12 kilometers of strike. So we know the epithermal geology is there. Started hitting beautiful textures, redolent of high-grade mineralization. And then when we finally got the assays back, getting that high-grade mineralization. So we've released so far 8 holes, and all hitting that high-grade style mineralization and getting high-grade assays as well. Key holes I'll point out, half a meter at 1,000 gram per ton at Peter Vein, and then the latest release out just this week, 1.3 meters at 1,000 grams silver equivalent up at Grauerwolf. Now, also on this slide, you can see this contact here, the orange contact. That's the contact that was mined historically, was kind of known to be silver bearing, but now we're starting to define and make very good discoveries on this northerly contact, opening up an entirely new horizon of potential mineralization. So right now it's just checking the boxes. Can you permit? Yes. Can you work? Yes. Is the epithermal system there? Yes. Can you hit high-grade style mineralization? Yes. Is it going to be high grade? Yes. And now the 2021 program is really about, well, how much is there? So right now we're permitting the program for 2021, a far more extensive program than we saw in 2020. And these 4 targets, key targets that we've hit, Bronsdorf, Reichenbach, Grauerwolf, and Peter Vein, follow-ups there to try to put some 3 dimensions and conceptual tonnage on some of these zones. as we continue to make other discoveries or look for other discoveries, the length of the 36-kilometer strike project. And you can see this mineralization here, just beautiful textures, 900 plus gram per ton silver with some good gold grades here as well, a Peter vein, and all of these have some good lead and zinc grades as well. A little bit of background on where we are. Here's a section through one of the old deposits, Bronsdorf, the first place we drilled. So we took the old mine plans, meticulously drawn over 100 years ago, kept in the archives in town, digitized them, put them in 3D. And that's really the simplest aspect of our exploration technique. Drill a long strike into depth from these old workings and mine chutes. The first hole at Bronsdorf kind of just clipped the chute, so now it's about going and getting the depth extension and a long strike on these chutes as well. The area, as you can see, it's rolling farmland. In fact, my background here, that's actually a picture of our drilling at Silver City. These are industrially operated farms, so it's a pretty straightforward arrangement to get access. And longer term, there's good options to get access to the ground. The area itself has a number of very large quarries. There already are extractive industries on the project itself, and definitely within Saxony, certainly very large coal mines up in the north and a number of extractive quarries. And the area actually used to be a major producer of solar panels, still solar arrays everywhere around Freiburg. Solar World was an operation here over a decade ago, employed 5,000 people until those jobs got outsourced. So I kind of like the historical symmetry or poetry of going back to the source of those solar panels underneath the fields, this key metal of silver. We have a research and development agreement with the Helmholtz Institute, this advocacy and mining technology institute in the town of Freiburg. We share our data, drill core, and get access to hyperspectral, seismic, various drone geophysics, and have a great sounding board for some of our ideas as well. University of Freiburg now, the geological department has a living, breathing exploration program in their backyard. So it's been great working with some of those PhD students, just huge brain power going into this project right now. So it's a fascinating project. We're making discoveries. We're in a great up and coming jurisdiction at the right time, and we're drilling for high grade silver. Really excited for this drill program to start kind of in late Q1, early Q2, and putting some bulk on those discoveries that we've made in 2020. So moving on from Silver City, I think noting this slide, really charting like the resource growth and what we did in 2020. We came into 2020 with about 14 million silver equivalent in the Platosa resource. We left 2020 with, depending on metal price mix, 170 million silver equivalent, and moved from 0.6 silver equivalent per ounce, or silver equivalent ounces per share, to over 5 silver equivalent ounces per share. So massively increasing our leverage to precious metals prices. So very successful year, and I think that's something that the market hasn't quite grasped in the trading patterns of Exelon over the last little while. But when you look at it though as well, it's organic growth through the Evolution resource, which we mentioned earlier, between an 80 and 100 million ounce silver equivalent resource, and then that acquisitive growth through the acquisition of Otis at a very good valuation for Exelon shareholders. We're part of the Mining Association of Canada and the Mining Safety Roundtable as well. And I think, with the successes that we had during 2020, great drill results, the Evolution resource, acquiring Otis, our greatest success is still keeping our people safe. March to June, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew how to deal with this pandemic anywhere, not just in the mining business. We were really able to rely on our bigger peers in the business and draw on some of the best practices. And in Mexico, the industry was shut down from April 1st to June 1st. But it won't be shut down again because we're part of the solution. Our people come to work. They have to wear masks at all times, socially distanced, their temperature checked, tested. We do contact tracing if there are any cases. And it's really trying to communicate that ethos in the way that we keep people safe to the communities around us as well. So of all the things that we succeeded in 2020, definitely most proud about keeping our people safe and the operation ongoing. So looking forward and looking back a little bit, the green check marks done, lots of stuff accomplished, and now looking forward, more drill results to come from Silver City, getting that drill program going over the next few months once the permits come in, Lots of drilling ongoing at Platosa right now. From underground, Hablancio, a key target, as we mentioned earlier, and PDN, that potential game changer. If we get that into that gold copper skarn. Oakley, going to start drilling there over the next few months once the weather lifts a little bit, and then continuing to work on Platosa's cost profile. Noting again, Q1 is going to be difficult because of the polar vortex and the challenges with energy in the southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico right now. And then Kilgore coming online once the permits come through in the middle of this year. So lots more to come. I think 2020 was a challenge for everyone, but we managed to set down great foundations for success in 2021 and the years coming forward.
Well, I look forward to seeing those results. And thanks for taking the time, Brendan. Always a pleasure. Glad that you could participate in Silver Week, and hope to see this rally continue. It's nice to see some real interest in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the silver squeeze was just day one, right? And that's the cornerstone of what's to come.
Agreed. And thank you, everyone, for participating in this event and the events all week. Looking forward to Atlantic Conference next week, which is another region that we're excited about.
We can't thanks, be in
Brendan,
that one, right?
and we can make an accident. You've got till Tuesday, so get on it.
Try to scrounge something up there.
Thanks. And everyone have a great weekend. Thanks.